This is sort of bent this way a bit, so it can give us a little bit of problem till we get it bent. So we use this technique of bending it over our leg, and then we start taking up the weight on that string till finally you usually try to get this distance from the bow handle to the string, or else you often have these big hickeys developing as the string runs on your wrist. I go around, then I start doing that half hitching here, and I half hitch this way and that way, and that reduces the frustration of your string snapping on you. Now I can relax, and I can now tie it with a couple of half hitches. Non-elastic string is quite mandatory here. You tie the string with nylon paracord with the stuff removed, and in a short while it's stretched to the point. Here we got more bend there, so at this point we can use that as a guide, not cutting into your string. You reduce it. You got a musical. And you might also encourage it, but at first take your bow and you do this for a while, because you don't surprise the fibers in the bow by putting on and drawing it to full draw. You should be creeping up on the draw you want, and so on. So this was Saskatoon. You'd be making a pretty skookum bow in a relatively short time if the stick is dry. So you go like this. Now there is a hazard with regard to arrows that you should be aware of, and that is that if you draw a short arrow, an arrow, to be safe, shouldn't be shorter than that, because you can draw it, accidentally put the arrow head into the handle, let go of the string, and what's happening is you're sighting along the arrow, and the bow handle and the string action, the splinter takes out an eye. And they say what, probably every sixth or seventh archer in the British archers had an eye missing from that. You could tell that he'd been in some big battles, because usually that's where it happens, that you're drawing back, and out of your excitement you draw the bow back so far the arrowhead catches in the handle, and then you let go of the string, and the power of the string snaps the arrow, and the splinters of the arrow create a problem. Now if you are fletching an arrow, you put the fletching on the heavy end, because you can see that's the way it grew, and the arrowhead on the small end. For hunting of squirrels from here to Jimmy, you might not need fletching, because you might find that your arrow will travel true enough as simply as it is, and you've got this big spike tied on there. And you've seen this preparation of the end of the arrow for your bowstring, where you cut 2 notches, a third of the way in roughly, and then around on both sides, and then you decide how far you want it to go in, and you make 2 nicks further down about the width of the knot. What's left is the notch, and if the wood is dry, that is enough for you to snap out your nock. You check to see that the nock is balanced. Such tiddly thing, you might choose to use your knife to initiate the split. It would help to put on glasses. And you've created that platform for the string, but you'll find the bowstring will wrench that off if you don't whip it. So you reduce your fiber to a small section and whip it very, very tightly, and then that keeps the string from snapping off one side of the thing there. So you got to learn to whip, or a constrictor would do very well here. You find that on the tail of the jam knot, the constrictor often has many. The constrictor would be used for tying your feathers on. That's where I first learned of it, actually, and then I learned of it being used in other ways. The native people would tie their feathers on with a string, they would have put a toggle on one end, and they'd put it between their toes and then draw on the other end to use the constrictor to tie their fletching on there. That prevents the now this, as we say, is sufficient to if I hit the barrel, it's sufficient to hunt squirrel from this distance here. Hitting that squirrel that hard would have caused it to be laying in the ground for a short while, then you run up and whap it with your bow in the head. But the arrow may not fly true very far, as we have now when I draw back on the bow, I'm listening for any creaking. If I hear any creaking, I better not draw it back any further.
Whoa.
The wind hit the arrow. It still missed my band. It wouldn't have hurt the band very much because it's blunt.